Hello, gorgeous, and welcome to the Women on Top podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Lynn, and with over 15 years of business experience, I became truly passionate about finding ways to support and hear from way more women. And what we know to be true is that women thrive when they are in their favorite position, on top. On top in business, in relationships, in personal growth, and on top in being real and authentic to who the hell they are. So I invite you to sit back and enjoy the Women on Top podcast. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Women on Top. And today I am just so looking forward to diving into this conversation. And today's guest is Taylor Tieman. She is a business and trademark attorney. She's also an educator and founder of Legal Amiga Law. And I just love that name. We'll dive into it a little bit more here in a second. She's really known for her style, which comes through so much online, on social media. I love the way that she's so approachable, so easy to understand the information that she's sharing. She also has this deep commitment to making legal services really accessible, and she helps small businesses, and particularly those that are owned by women and BIPOC entrepreneurs. She really helps them make sure that they are protected and help them navigate the legal landscape with confidence. And so I could not think of a better person to have on the show today to talk to us about all of these things. Welcome, Taylor. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'm just going to dive on in. I have a lot of questions about all of the things that you specialize in and have so much more knowledge in than I do. So many women that listen to this podcast and that are part of the community, they really are starting small businesses, or they have thriving businesses already, but they're just trying to kind of continue to level up. So oftentimes, we hear of this word around trademarking, and I feel like it's kind of a buzzword in a way. So I just really want to know, when is it actually time to trademark something? If I was to get, my first sale or hit a certain revenue, is that when? Are there certain milestones? Love to have you share.
Yeah. So I know that usually the question is when do I do it? And there's kind of two parts that we look at that for. I'm looking at when do we start that conversation and process, because that's usually much earlier than people think. And then going into the application, once you kind of talk to an attorney or have an idea of what the process looks like, then we can make a really good decision on what's good for us on when to apply. Because obviously finances are a huge concern because it's not a cheap process all the time.
Yeah.
I think the earlier, the better when you if you can talk to a trademark attorney or just start researching, because if we unfortunately pick a business name that's already been registered or that's already owned by someone else and they turn around and tell us to stop using it, they could do that at any point, 2 months in, 1 year in, 10 years in. We've seen people even get cease and desist, deep into their business. So that's kind of a bummer when you invest all that time and money, especially into the brand, and you have to totally redo everything. I think the part that's the worst is we had a client that had this happen to them, and they have to now figure out how to message entirely differently. They have to communicate why the brand is changing in a way that's okay for them. So it's not just change the name, change the documents. It's how do you re-communicate that to your audience, which a lot is involved when you rebrand. So I think starting the conversation early and researching the process and knowing okay, do I have a name that's usable? And then deciding, do I want to apply to protect it? People make that decision based on finances, based on, when they're launching, if they're launching ASAP, if they've already launched. But I think starting conversation as early as possible, even I have a business idea, I think I should talk to an attorney early.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So when does it become non-negotiable? It sounds like straight away from the beginning. I mean, so many people are just winging it at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of luck of the draw on, if you're using something that is already registered, and you can remove that lottery piece of it by getting it cleared very early. So I think the only time that I don't push people, I mean, I never push people because that's not fun.
Right.
The only time I tell people maybe don't start investing in legal trademark stuff is if you are thinking about a name and you're I don't know if I want to do that. Maybe you're doing internal beta testing of a program with like your current clients and you haven't really named it yet, like that's not necessary at that point.
Mm-hmm.
If you're launching a full brand, if you're launching a full offer, the earlier that we can hopefully dodge any issues, the better.
Mm.
That said, business owners they do like risk by nature, which is it's a good thing. You have to be like that as a business owner. Some
Yeah.
people are like, I don't want to deal with it yet. And some people are like, I want to deal with this very early.
Yeah. So, can you kind of break down what does a trademark do to protect you? And I also want to ask about the difference between getting a trademark and the difference between getting an LLC, and what's the difference between the protection as well?
Yeah, good question. The trademark registration, what that actually provides you is the legal, like documented ownership of your name. So if we don't have the trademark, we can still kind of prove like when we've been using it, but it kind of becomes like the pink slip for a car where it's a lot harder to show like who owns that car if we don't have the actual documentation.
Mm-hmm.
It actually also gets you onto the public register, which people should be, in theory, checking if they're using names or if they're picking names. So it gives you like this very public presence and full registration as far as the name that you have, in addition to like whatever presence you have on socials or if your website's doing good SEO.
Yeah.
The difference between the trademark and the LLC or any other protective entity is that the trademark legal protection, what it does is give you the right to be the only business or person that can use that name to sell those products or services. So if you own, something health project to sell a course and you have it registered, you are the only business that can use that name to sell
Mm.
that thing. On the other hand, the LLC or like a corporation or something similar will help form that protective entity, the legal entity around the business. So that's where we are ideally trying to not become personally liable for things that happen with the business. So any like issue you have, any sort of lawsuit, if it comes in, we want the business to deal with it and we want the business assets to be at stake and not our personal assets.
Okay. So the LLC is basically protecting them from coming after you personally.
Yeah, exactly.
The trademark is protecting the name
Yes.
and
Yeah.
everything behind that. And so ideally, it sounds like really you should have both
Yeah.
if you want
Yeah.
to be well
Yeah,
protected.
they overlap. It's like so tricky because they both kind of center around the name of the
Yeah,
business. So sometimes people think like, oh, I have the LLC, I own the name, which is not true. Or like I have the trademark, my business is
right.
protected. It's like it's protected with certain things, but not like fully.
How long does it typically take to get a trademark?
Yeah. The federal trademark process has been taking quite some time for the past couple years. They right now, start to finish, ours are taking like 13 to 14, 15 months. So like year and a half,
Wow.
start to finish. Yeah. They just take a very long time to review the applications. It's in the system, it's an electronic filing, so you'll be able to see it. They do take a lot of time, though, to assign it to an attorney to review. And that's just because of pure amount of applications that get filed. That's at the federal level. The state level, it's much quicker, but the state level protection is not as broad.
Mm.
States are usually like a couple months to process.
Oh, okay. And so why would you not just do it through the state that you're in? I guess is it because of the services that you're offering and
Yeah. Yeah. We usually recommend if you can qualify for federal, it's a little bit more expensive, but it provides you more protection in all 50 states versus just your state.
Mm.
That said, if you're a business like a barber shop that's only operating like locally or like a restaurant,
Mhm.
usually can't go apply at the federal level. So we'll file at the state level.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So it takes so long, but are you protected during that waiting period at all?
You actually, before filing an application, you do have some level of general, what we call common law protection. So if somebody's using the name and you haven't like filed an application yet, technically there's arguments we can make on your behalf.
Mm.
They're not as strong if we don't have the registration, but you're technically like very minimally protected the minute you start using it. But because that protection is so minimal, it's not as strong. That's why people go to apply either at state level or federal level. So once you go to apply, I wouldn't say more protected, but there is more visibility on the registers once your application is in. Ideally, somebody should
I
see
see.
like, I've filed for this. If I wanted to pick that name, I shouldn't file for that after that person.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. As you're speaking, I'm just thinking of all the stories you've probably seen over the course of your time. So, what's one of the, I guess, like the worst mistakes that you've seen happen? Even, smart women and, that maybe they've made in their business. And can you spill some of that tea so that, future listeners don't make the same mistakes?
Yeah, I think, and it's like such an interesting different conversation with like men that run businesses versus women. The men are like ready to protect stuff immediately. Even if they just thought of something, like they have that audacity about that. I mean, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. They are always ready to file stuff. And I'm like, yo, you don't even have like a concept yet. You can't even tell me what you're going to sell. And they're like, I want to protect this name. And I'm like, you have to tell me what you're selling first. And sometimes I think female owned, BIPOC owned businesses, we kind of feel like we need to wait until there's like this established business to file something, which is not the case. You can even file a trademark early as long as you have a good faith intention to sell products or services under that name. And we can identify what you want to sell. We can't just like apply for any name and like tack it up there. We actually have to know what we want to sell. But you can apply early. The only kind of hindrance I think there is budget. Does your business have the, capital to file the application as early as you want to? That really should be, in my opinion, the only thing that stops us. Because if we can file early, I really encourage it. Like if a business comes to me and they have a good budget and they have the legal funds to file stuff, I tell them like, let's file early. But I think sometimes business owners think like I need to be making a certain amount of money or like I need to be established. It's like you could pick a business name and get hit with a cease and desist tomorrow, whether you have $10 in your account or like thousands and millions of dollars in your account. So I think the mindset of I have to wait until I'm established is something we see.
So the cease and desist, where does that come from? Is that just somebody that says, I have the same name, or how do these things pop up?
Yeah, it's usually somebody that's operating with the same name or a very similar name. Sometimes they come from a place where we know that they're coming and we know the big brand is like, they're just going to send you a cease and desist because they can and they have the, fee. They can pay the attorneys to do it. Sometimes they come out of absolutely nowhere where we're like, oh, we didn't know that that was a big brand. And I guess they're sending us a cease and desist
Yeah.
because they think the names are somewhat similar. We might not think so, but they might think so. So anybody can send you one. Legally, you have to have a good argument as to why the names are similar and why customers or clients would be confused between the two. As we see with legal stuff all the time, that doesn't always stop people from just sending stuff out. It doesn't happen all the time, but we probably see them at least 2 to 3 a quarter, and they're not fun. Sometimes we argue back. Sometimes it's like this is a huge brand, and do you want to fight this out with them? We know they have a lot of money. Like changing the name, I know you don't want to, but it's probably the cheaper option at this point.
This is such good information to share because this will just help prevent people from really having to deal with that situation down the road. And then you're faced with something that you never wanted to even think about in the first place.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you see that far too often. And I'm sure that can get a little bit like, I don't know, tiring in a way, or like, I don't know, just I'm sure you have some feelings about that, especially for the people that you're trying to serve.
Yeah, I mean, the cease and desist we see come through. Like I know the budgets on the other end, and I know the budgets that our clients have, and sometimes it's just an unfair fight of who has more money to toss at a lawyer, which is not fun. But I mean, we do all we can to educate business owners so that they know that this is a thing that could happen. Where who it happens to is kind of luck of the draw sometimes. But if you do a good job in like clearing the name and trying to really avoid this stuff, there's things you can do to avoid a lot of this. We can't always avoid everything, but clearing names beforehand, even checking in with an attorney. You don't have to pay us like hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to like talk to us for like 15-20 minutes, and we could tell you off the bat like that's not a good name, let's pick a new one. But yeah, I think being educated is a good thing about this.
Yes. Yeah. When it comes to the communities that you really seem to be passionate about serving, women and, BIPOC, where did that come from? Where was that passion born from? And yeah, how does that play a role in your journey?
Yeah. I initially, when I first kind of started taking clients, I was helping my friend who's female owned Pilates studio. And I mean, I've only run in like legal circles before. So like people that I know, I've know a handful maybe in my circles of people who've started businesses. And so they're kind of all doing like the legal stuff. My friend was just asking me some of these questions. And she was like opening her studio in a month. And like there was a lot that had gone into it financially that I was like, whoa, you're just now talking to an attorney. So that kind of shifted my perspective of like, why hasn't she talked to one yet? Like, what was kind of the deal? And so, in talking with her, I realized like it was just a very daunting thing and it was confusing and expensive. And so, I was like, I think there's ways that I can use my legal vocabulary to help business owners not be super intimidated. Like, I know this is an intimidating process, but I think half the battle is like, do I have to go talk to some like old dude attorney that's going to treat me like I don't know anything? Like, if there's attorneys that kind of like speak my language and they're, within my circles, it might be a little easier. So that's where it kind of started. And then in launching and telling people like, hey, I'm doing this now, just naturally, like my community, I'm Latina. So my community was like, hey, I see you're doing this. Can we work with you? And luckily the referrals of, our first couple clients and customers was amazing. The amount of minority attorneys compared to how many minorities exist is like ridiculous. Like I think there's only 2% Latina attorneys and like a third of the country is some sort of
Oh,
Latino, which is crazy. So, I mean, that's a good thing for us because our referral network is amazing, but it's not great when you don't see people that you think can help you. So we're slowly like trying to change that, but like being that intermediary between what's necessary and the business owner has been like really amazing. I just thought I was going to start a firm and like be doing paperwork, but has turned into so much education, which I think is really fun.
yeah, especially for those communities that you just, that you're a part of and that you feel so good giving back to. I'm curious if you found it to be a struggle ever to kind of show up the way that you do, because like you said, it's a little bit unique to have somebody who's, a little younger and you show up in a different way. You're not the old white dude who's wearing a three-piece suit. H- How has that been, that process?
Yeah. I mean, I initially was very nervous. I was like, I don't think people are going to trust me because I don't look like that typical attorney of what people would think. But then I just kept remembering like that's like the point. Like that's the value I have that I'm not that. So kind of really just like leaning into that and hoping people got it. I started off like being really like prim and proper, like fancy-ish website, like kind of boring, posting like kind of boring stuff. And I was like, this is not like resonating with people. And so
Hmm.
I worked with a marketing consultant and she was like, just post you. Like people want to see that. And I was like, are you sure? And it worked. And people like to see that. And that's like what has interestingly enough like kept people coming back because they're like, I can see myself in that person and they just happen to have a license to help me do this stuff, which has been really cool that I can like be myself for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reason I was attracted to you and your work and everything. It's just the way that you show up because it resonates. It's like, gosh, I could totally talk to her and I'm not going to feel judged. I'm not going to feel like she's looking at me like I have three heads. And I think it's so important, like you said, to be what you want to see. So, was there somebody for you who did that? Was there a person who kind of brought you along that was kind of a mentor for you in any way?
Yeah, there's a handful of attorneys who do pretty much exactly what I do, and they have just been doing it a little bit longer, some of them a lot longer. And I just contacted them and I was like, hey, would you mind just like chatting with me on like how you built your firm? And like, I mean, just some pointers on like, is this working for you? Because like we can all be posting about how, our firm does XYZ, but like, are you actually getting clients? And some of them were really super kind. And one in particular, her branding is Not Your Father's Lawyer. She's a lawyer do you know her?
No, I love that title.
She's in like Orange County area.
Awesome. Okay.
And she was just like, and she's been an attorney, I think a little bit longer than me, but had her firm like longer than I was starting out. And she was so helpful, so kind, which I personally was not used to having female attorneys be so nice to me and working in other firms. And I just was like, wow, this is awesome. And no wonder you get cool clients because you're really cool. And she was like really amazing. And I still like keep in touch with her to this day. But the community of lawyers that are online, for the most part, the ones I've run into and talked to are really cool. They're just like
Yeah.
normal. Like, I think to put your face and like voice online as a lawyer, it's kind of scary. And like in our industry, it's not down upon, but people think it's kind
Yeah.
of weird to have to do that. But the ones that do it are usually pretty cool.
Yeah. Gosh, it's so inspiring because I've felt a lot of fear sometimes in just showing up and being totally authentic and getting some of that judgment. Have you ever received judgment or negative comments or any of that that has been hard to navigate?
Yeah, I mean, initially, like, I was posting a lot, and my mom was like, why are you posting so much about yourself? Like, I
For the
feel like you
parents,
shouldn't
they're
be
like, what are
doing.
you doing?
Yeah. She was just genuinely concerned. Like, are you sure people are going to hire you? But she also had that mentality of like lawyers have to look a certain way. And I was like, I'm just going to go with this and see if this works. She also was like, why don't you just go work for somebody else? Now, after a couple years, like she's realized and she's gone to like my events and stuff. And she's like, wow, you're doing cool stuff. I was like, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
She initially was like, "What are you doing?" And then every now and then, like, we'll get trolls of like people that are like, "I can't believe you're so unprofessional on the internet." It's like, what do you, okay, but that's your definition of professional because this is me being professional.
Right.
Sometimes we'll get people like that, but like for the most part, people are really cool.
Yeah, I really just love the authenticity piece. And I think it just speaks to, you and your journey and your client base now. And gosh, it makes me also think about what was it that attracted you to become a lawyer in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many reasons. I usually like when people ask me that, it depends on the mood. I mean, like I grew up and I was like, my mom had always had envisioned for me like a very professional type of career. And I just remember her talking about like doctor or lawyer. So I was like, I'm not good with like blood. So like lawyer might be a good option. I went to school on the East Coast with a lot of very smart kids. And I was like, oh my God, all these people are going to grad school. So then you have that like push of like, what should you be doing after?
Mhm.
And also I had seen growing up in LA, like how cool like the entertainment stuff was. So I was like, I think I want to be an entertainment attorney. So I think all of that combined. And I also really love writing, persuasive writing. So that was something I kind of honed in college and all that kind of added up to like, you should probably go to law school. So I don't remember a time that it wasn't on like my goal list. I think I always kind of thought that, but I really solidified it in like college.
Yeah, that it's so good to kind of connect those dots when you look back and like, gosh, this makes sense because of some of my strengths. Seems like you still love what you do. Can you kind of share? I mean, obviously we know the legal advice piece, but so Legal Miga, where does the name come from? And you have events, you have this social presence. Kind of give us the holistic picture of what your business offers.
Yeah. The name I thought of because I saw like the communities we were working with, I wanted the name to be approachable, but also kind of nod to legal. So I just combined legal and Amiga and took the A out and I also like as a trademark attorney, I was like, I have to pick a good name or else my clients are gonna be like, why are you gonna help me?
Yeah.
So that luckily, like I secured that pretty early and I really love our branding to this day. I had never really thought about running a firm. I had never thought about running a business. So like that in and of itself has been hard because obviously like we do law, we help our clients, but like I also have to run a business through the law firm, which is they don't teach you how to do that. It's crazy. I don't think nobody actually teaches you effectively how to do that unless you go like get an MBA. But even
Yeah.
at that level, they're kind of teaching you how to walk into corporate. So I don't know that we have a good system for anybody to learn how to run a business through the education system, at least. Yes, it's a lot of learning, a lot of like figuring stuff out. It's not easy. I know everybody online makes stuff look very easy, and it's like
Yes.
not easy.
Yeah, especially you being in an LA. I mean, that's such a market to try to make it in.
Yeah.
Was it ever hard? Did you ever have moments where you just wanted to give up? And what was it that kept you pushing through in that in that
Yeah.
moment?
I mean, I think my first year, looking back, like now looking back at the numbers, if I actually
Mhm.
had people looking at my numbers, they would have been like, are you sure you want to do this? Because I just was like, good, I have clients. I
Yeah.
had saved about K going into starting a law firm, which like living in LA is probably not enough to pay for very much. But like I was just kind of scraping by with the clients we were getting. I was just so excited. I was getting like 1 to 2 a month, which was not enough with my pricing at the time.
Mhm.
And looking back, my first year was like not great financially. So we started 6 months before COVID hit. I think if we didn't have that huge world event, I probably would have been like looking at stuff more carefully. But I think I was just trying to survive during the time and get as many clients as possible. So it's kind of like you're just in it and you don't really not really checking in. I think to be like the business owner part, you have to just like walk into something and be like, I'm gonna make this work. I don't
Hmm.
you have to make this work.
Yeah. Did you use coaches, mentors during that time as well to help you navigate it, or you just figured it out?
Yeah, I hired, well, there's two attorneys that had a course on like how to start a law firm, which was really helpful because I had like no idea. They had kind of helped with the framework of like, here's what you need for systems. Here's, how you kind of market yourself.
Hmm.
I had no idea how I was going to get clients and how I was going to continue marketing myself. And I saw that Instagram at the time was a really good way for us, I thought, because that's how the other attorneys were kind of marketing themselves. So I did hire a marketing consultant early to help me market like she was marketing, not like how other lawyers were marketing. I think that helped in the beginning because if I had tried to go the route of how other lawyers market, I didn't have the funds to do like I couldn't run ads. Like everything came in through organic social marketing for the first like 3.5 years. So that was very helpful. I think like thinking outside the box. I did it on accident, but it really helped not be in this place of like, why can't people find us? Like we were going where the people were looking for us and like purposely just like pumping out content.
Yeah. Have you ever experienced somebody just, having a crisis? Like, I'm just trying to, think about these people who maybe do have a cease and desist and they've got a thriving business. Or what's a story you remember helping somebody through that was like, gosh, are we going to even get through this?
Yeah. I mean, I still have like a past client who's like still going through a name change process and it's just like so draining on her. And it's like she's still telling me stuff about it. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's not every day that somebody comes in with like a major red flag issue like that. It does happen though, which is not fun. And as the person helping them, like I just absorb all those feelings and I see the letter sometimes before they do. And I'm like, oh, how am I gonna like relay this to them? Because this is not fun news to get. So that is hard to kind of figure out like how to be the professional helping them and like remove yourself enough that you're not like taking all of that on, but also like walk them through it and like tell them it's going to be okay. That's tough. I don't have a handle fully on that. I don't know that there is to have a handle on that other than, you just deal with what your clients are going through.
You have, I think, sometimes talked about this concept of legal being kind of a form of self worth, if you will. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that?
Yeah. I mean, I think I see clients when, their LLC gets formed or their trademark comes through. And I see those things like get filed every day. So I'm a little numb to them. But like when I see them holding it or like posting it, I remember like, oh, wow, this is a very important process that people sometimes think that they can't achieve or they're like never going to get. Specifically, also with like trademarks are a little bit more less, or excuse me, contracts. You're not like posting all of that all the time. But when somebody has like a really good contract and like they figure out how to get paid and they're like, oh my gosh, Taylor, the contract, like I pushed back just a little, like you said, and I got paid the next day. Like they realize like how these things can help them as a business owner, which is really cool to see like the transformation of I didn't even think legal was a thing that I could do to like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful and it's helping me put boundaries in place or it's helping me feel like a little bit more legitimate, even though like a piece of paper shouldn't make you feel that much better. I mean, you should need to do some inner work sometimes too, but it's really cool to see like that, just like a little thing like that be really helpful.
Yeah, it kind of is a tool in that sense that can help with confidence and just feeling empowered to run your business in a successful way. With contracts, do people really need contracts for every client they have? What's kind of the rule of thumb when it comes to contracts?
I mean, if we had unlimited budgets, I'd love to see a contract for like every business relationship. So definitely for clients, anybody you have hired working for you, anybody that has hired you. I mean, I know it's nearly impossible to immediately get all of those in place, but like to start, if you're a service provider, having at least one client service agreement that, you just put the client's name in, the services, it's the same contract, but we're using the same one over and over again. And like 9 times out of 10, we won't need to enforce that ever. It's just good to have on hand. But the one time that somebody's not paying or like somebody wants a refund, like that happens a lot. And usually we're like, all right, your contract is solid, but do you have, the tools that to like go back at that person to say, I actually need to get paid because of the contracts. Sometimes having that one little document does help somebody say like, yeah, we did sign that and they owe me and I'm not going to just fold because it's a couple $100. Like I'm going to push back on them. So I think it's helpful sometimes for people even to have that little bit of security knowing they can ask for what they need.
I know we have some, a healthy amount of service providers who listen in. So the contracts, can you kind of describe the difference between contract and a client service agreement, or are they one and the same?
Yeah, when I say contracts, I mean like generally agreements, documents, specifically depending on what type of like services you provide, your agreement might just be titled differently and might be structured a little differently. So like
Mm,
a coach,
yeah.
they're probably going to have a coaching agreement and like their agreement says specific things on what they're providing and what they're expecting in return for payment, etc. A consultant is going to be named differently, but like probably look very similar to a coach. Services are going to look a little different. Ultimately, service-based contracts all kind of look very similar. However, the services you provide are different. And so they're kind of customized to the service you're providing to the client.
Okay. That's helpful. Gosh, it's good to know, just all of these different terms. And I think it's just so helpful to make sure that we're spreading this awareness also, because like you said, I just don't remember learning about some of this stuff in school.
Don't teach. I mean, they only teach it in law school, so
Right, right. To the woman who maybe is thinking about just now starting her business and maybe she's in her 30s or 40s and kind of feeling like she's late to the game, what would you say to her and what should she immediately be thinking about doing?
yeah, I would say you're not late to the game because now that I'm 35, almost 36, I keep looking at like all these really amazing businesses that were started by women in like their 30s, especially women. Like I just had a baby almost a year ago, and women that start businesses like after they have a baby and they're in their 30s because they like think of new stuff, which is so cool. So I was like, all right, my life is not over after having a baby. I would say that. And then I'd also say like, I think people focus a lot on like, how am I going to make money, get clients? Yes, that's very important. But I think figuring out the budget, if you have a budget to spend on things, allocating just a little bit to like talk to a lawyer and then they'll give you like what you need to know. Do you have to spend on all of it immediately? No, but you can kind of budget out like what am I going to need in the next 2 months, 6 months, year down the line. So at least you know and are educated on it. Otherwise, it's like it's a ton of research, which I mean, some lawyers like we try to do a good job of creating like guides and PDFs, but like that can only be so, helpful if you have no idea what those terms mean. So either get ready to research a lot or invest, a little ideally for an expert who can tell you, think of lawyers like, you hire a marketing expert, you'll hire a SEO expert, like we'll do that and get you the info that you need. And then you can kind of decide like what you want to spend on.
Yeah, that's a good tactical advice right there. Just I feel like it'd be so much better, at least for me, because I don't have time and I don't want to sort through all the legal stuff,
Yeah,
just to set aside a little bit of a budget right away. And then you feel good at getting started too. Like you feel like you're covering your basis in that sense.
exactly.
How do you balance your work and life now that you have become a mother? Have you found that to be challenging now that you have your own business? What does that balance look like?
Yeah, I really thought that there was going to be a better, but I thought that I could plan for a better balance. And there's just, I mean, every time I feel like I have a hang on something, like now she's crawling and almost walking. So it's like I can't just sit and do work with her sitting there. Like now I have to chase her around.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think just trying to be like moms, women are good at this just in general, like being super efficient. I can't like waste my time anymore. Like I used to be able to just kind of sit there and like work and watch TV and like I just got to be efficient now. And I'm still learning how to do that. It's difficult, but like using tools and hiring people when you need to hire them too. I'm not a huge fan of like hiring immediately because if you don't know how to hire legally, that can like get you off on the wrong foot if you don't
Mhm.
know how to hire. I think hiring strategically and like once you kind of know what you need is helpful too. Yeah, getting help where you need it and like asking for it. I'm not great at asking for help, but I've had to ask a lot of people for help.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a journey, right? I've heard other moms, I'm not a mom, but I've heard that this common theme of you become just so focused and you utilize your time so differently, and it's an ever evolving
It
process.
is. It is. I think I told myself like before we had kids, I was like, I need to make sure all the free time I have, I'm okay with just losing it. And that's what everybody was saying, like, you don't have free time anymore. And I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to like not have free time or have very little free time. And that's kind of true now. It's like you fit in what you can fit in, and ask for help to get like a couple hours here and there, but you have to just be like super efficient.
Yeah. I think it's a testament, though, to how much you enjoy what you do because it could be so easy to, kind of push that maybe to the side. And it seems like you just are so dedicated regardless. And I love to see that. It's more of a work-life integration. I think that's almost a better way because sometimes I feel like we separate it so much and it's really all just life at the end of the day. So I love to see that passion. And for somebody else, I was just thinking about it's so interesting having the advice from your perspective as a lawyer, but then also from the perspective of your career journey, because it's a unique field to be in as a female, especially. So for somebody who's listening, who is a woman who's kind of intrigued by the legal aspect of things and considering maybe pursuing it, what would you say to her?
I think it's a good thing. There's a lot of lawyers that will tell you like don't do it. It's miserable. I mean, I used to be that like miserable lawyer working at a law firm, but I'm no longer miserable because you kind of take what you know about the law and like what you know about the industry and you apply it to like what you want to do and who you want to work with. It's a ton of work. It's not like a normal I'm going to go work for a law firm and have somebody give me work to do. It's you have to be very creative, but I think if you are interested in law or interested in like any profession that is changing a lot, like the way that we all operate like remotely now, like lawyers were not doing that like 5 years ago before COVID. They had to figure it out. But like the people that were already kind of doing it were like, oh, I got this on lock. I don't need to figure out how to work from home. I already know how to do this. So people that are changing the industries, not always favorite by your industry peers. However, sometimes they're like looking back to you like, hey, actually, can you tell me how to like use Instagram to market? And I'm like, oh, that's weird because you thought that was strange of me to do like 3 years ago. Okay, let me like show you how we do this.
Yes, it's so funny how those tides turn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Sometimes women have a challenge in, at least this is on the whole, I'm kind of generalizing and throwing myself in there, but in taking up space and having their voice be heard and really showing up in the way that you do such a good job of. So again, I just want to kind of ask, like, what advice do you have for that woman who's starting to show up a little bit more online and really wants to have that confidence?
Yeah. I mean, I am like, people don't ever really know this because I talk so much online, but I am super introverted. I have major social anxiety. And I've just kind of learned that this is helpful for my business, for people to see my personality. I didn't think that people were going to like resonate with my personality, but once I saw like it kind of is a snowball effect of like somebody does want to work with somebody like me, or like somebody does appreciate my like weird quirks, like that's cool. So kind of like just testing the waters and seeing, and there's a personality type for everybody. So like I know not everybody loves me, but there's a good set of people that do want to work with me because of like who I am.
Hmm.
And that goes like that goes for any industry. Like whatever you do, if you
Hmm.
kind of make your personality known and like toss your story into stuff, there's several people, if not hundreds, that are going to want to work with you, but they're never going to like know that about you unless you actually start posting.
So true. It's so true. We all know it to be true. It's just taking the action that's really hard, which
Yeah.
also leads me to ask you, how do you create content? Because sometimes I think we get sucked into like, oh, my life is boring. I hear that a lot. So how do you create interesting content?
I feel like some of the most boring stuff, like people actually like I think I remember during COVID, I would just post like, here's what projects we're working on today. And like that actually people were like, oh, what is that? Number one, like, do I need that? Like that created like clients for us because people were like, oh, you're working on a contract. Like, do I need that? So even some of the most boring stuff, or even if it just resonates with people, they're like, oh, I'm doing that too, or like I'm going through that too. It just allows you to create connections with people that you wouldn't be able to create otherwise. And I mean, everybody at the end of the day is doing like kind of boring stuff at home anyway. So we're not all doing fancy stuff all the time.
Yeah. I think that's really good. Like to post the boring things, the things that you think are just, why would anyone want to see this or hear about it or whatever? Just
Yeah.
post it anyway. You never know.
Also, this like not that the goal is to go like viral, but because even viral stuff like will not get clients from. But if you are trying to like increase reach or be visible, like the stuff that's viral, if you watch it, it's very like mundane stuff. It's things that people can resonate with and feel like that's me, that applies to me. So like that's proof that like the boring stuff is you're gonna be able to have a lot of people understand you.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point too, because I feel like the tides are also changing for social media from what they used to be. And some of it is you don't need to go viral anymore. That doesn't need to be the goal. But even the viral stuff, to your point, is like not flashy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so as we wrap up this conversation, I have a tradition on this podcast where I have the previous guest leave a quote for the next guest, not knowing who it is. So I'd like to share the quote that was left for you and then give you the opportunity to do the same. So the quote that was left for you is, "You are doing so much better than you probably think you are." If somebody were looking on the outside, looking into how you are navigating whatever hard thing it is, they would be impressed by how you're handling it, and that you may not see that now, but in time you will.
Oh my gosh. It like speaks to like everybody who just thinks they're not doing enough. That's like such like a good like thing for moms too.
Yes. Right? I mean, we're just so good at comparing ourselves and being like, oh, I just need to do this a little bit more. I just need to be better at XYZ. I needed to hear that quote when it was spoken out loud. It was like kind of a little bit of a breath in, like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd love to have you leave, quote or just something that is coming to you for the next guest, not knowing who it is.
Yeah, I actually have my grandpa who has since passed, but that's who my daughter's named after. He has this quote that me and my mom like have everywhere, but he was part owner of a business, and his like favorite thing, which teaches me to, I think, to just be really grateful, is business is great, people are beautiful, life is wonderful. So like that always reminds me that my business is like cool, but like the goal is not for like, yes, business should be great, but like my life how I want it to be? And like, yeah, I built this thing so that my life can be how it wants it to be. Uh,
Yeah,
and so like when I'm freaking out about business stuff, I'm like, okay, but is my life good? Like my life's generally good.
that's so beautiful. Say that again.
Business is great, people are beautiful, life is wonderful.
Business is great. People are beautiful. Life is wonderful. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. What a cool legacy he
Yeah.
left.
I'm looking just because I have it like on a little board right here, like have it all the time. My mom has one too.
That's great. That's so grounding. And we all need a quote like that or something in our lives that we can look at every once in a while and reflect on really why we're doing the thing that we're doing. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
such a testimony to how you lead. And, when I think about the women on top and really who this is for, it's for the women who are pioneering their way differently. It's for the women who are leading differently, who are choosing to go first. And you are just such a testament to that. So thank you so much for your time. It is not lost on me that time for you, especially now, is very precious and valuable. So it's the biggest gift you could give us. And I just so appreciate you, Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning into the show today. And before you go, I just have one quick favor to ask of you. There is a really simple way that you can help support me and help support this show, and that is to hit that follow button on whatever app you're listening to the show on. I'm trying really hard to level up the content and deliver unique value and amazing guests, and just hitting that follow button is the magic that will help continue to empower that. And remember that the world deserves to hear your voice and your stories, and you deserve a place at the top.